Welcome to the broadcast, my dear old fruits. Prince Harry is now a legend of aviation. Isn't that remarkable? How wonderful. But that doesn't prevent him from being entirely unchivalrous, ungracious, and downright rude, in my estimation. And you'll have to tell me whether you think I'm going over the top or whether you agree with me. But I thought the way that he dealt with John Travolta was revolting. It was Travolting. I'm sure you saw it. It's yesterday's fish and chip paper now. But I've yet to report on it, and I want to make my feelings known because he said, "This is nice. Thanks very much, Captain John. I was 1 year old when you danced with my mum, with Mummy. As you've told everybody here and continue to dine out on that probably every single night. But look at us now, it's great, so we're not going to dance together, we'll fly together." Round of applause, polite titter all over the audience. So yeah, if you missed that, he said, as you continued as you've told everybody here and continue to dine out on that probably every single night, extraordinarily ill-advised and ungracious and humiliating for Mr. Travolta. It was belittling, and it's nothing to do with a sense of humour and come on, it's only a bit of banter. It's only a bit of banter between friends. Oh, they're bros. He's being fraternal, you know. It's all what lads do. No, Harry is not in the army anymore, despite being a legend of aviation. He is not a teenager, despite being the living incarnation of Harry Enfield's character, whatever that character was called. What was it? Oh, Kevin. That's it, Kevin. The living embodiment of it. Despite being that, it was arrogant, actually. No, seriously now, I'm camping it up. But in case you've missed that, I'm camping it up, my dear, but I thought it was extremely rude. Really, I did. And one doesn't traduce others through humour or any other format on a public arena in that way when, unless one is intending to traduce them. And, it's been a quiz. It's been a real quiz for me. Was the boy actually trying to traduce John Travolta, that he's trying to embrace into his friendship group, probably sign up to Scientology, who knows, my dear. But it crosses the mind, is this just Harry's modus operandi? He's so dyed in the wool that is the way that he operates. He can't help himself. A little poke, poking the bear. You don't poke the Travolta, darling. And John Travolta is a very agreeable man. Everybody knows he's a big cuddly bear. Everybody knows he's absolutely divine, he's lovely, he's wonderful. A little bit loop-the-loop, but absolutely gorgeous, absolutely wonderful. And he'll always be our Danny Zuko, won't he, my dears? But he is still a man. He is still a man with testosterone pumping through those lithe disco limbs, and he would have felt the slight. Trust me, he would have felt the slight, and it would not have amused or impressed him, despite the wide smile that might have been presented. No, my dear, because it's out of order. And Harry is the one, via J.R. Muringer, that projects these insect-like creatures with stings in their tail onto other people. The Sir Clives, and the Sir Edwards, and the this, that, and the seventh. He projects bees and wasps, but he is the insect, the creature with a sting in its tail, the scorpion. What's the boy's star sign again? It's gone. It's gone. Oh, Virgo. Virgo the Virgin. Okay, he's not Scorpio. Maybe he's got Scorpio rising or some such. No disparagement to Scorpios. I get on very well with Scorpios. Very passionate sign. Very passionate sign. I'm digressing. Virgo the Virgin. Well, Sasha Walpole saw to that, didn't she, poor gal? That's what booze does. Behind the bikes and the bushes, that's what booze does. But why did he throw so much shade at John Travolta? Because make no mistake about it, as far as I'm concerned, that was so shade, and it was not just jocularity, just matey banter. It was a put-down, a belittling put-down on a world stage. Not that the entire world was watching these fancy awards. Who'd ever heard of them before? but it illustrates to the world and to us all Harry's idea of fraternal affection, of brotherly love, doesn't it? It's that kind of style that I personally hate, surprise, surprise. That sort of schoolboy goading and poking and prodding and teasing, being, the little rebel, that some such find endearing, a small quantity tend to find endearing in boys, and think that it's something to have affection over. I don't see it. It's the kind of thing maybe some will be drawn to bad boys in the same vein because it gets the blood pumping and the adrenaline going. Well, isn't it funny? Those who fall in love with bad boys always then complain when they end up with bad men. It's funny that, isn't it? Now, I also don't necessarily approve of someone slapping their brother to the floor by the nearest dog bowl and snatching off their necklace and breaking that into smithereens. I'm not necessarily saying that I approve of that either, of that style, but at least one could say that that style of fraternal affection or disaffection is perfunctory and it is final rather than a drip feed of lingering poison toxicity and passive aggression, because that is also what I sense, passive aggression. But it was very interesting just to see in those few words in that acceptance speech what Harry had to drive home. He couldn't put the boot into his family, so now he's putting the boot into his friends under the guise of it being healthy banter, a joke between friends. You know, my mum's old friend, mummy's old friend, I ask you. And then we were treated to imposing with some other person that calls himself a prince, Prince Mario Max. Prince Mario Max, who seems a real enthusiast for Prince Harry. He's been singing his praises, cozying up to him. First I actually took him for Len Goodman, that judge from Strictly. But he is dead, so it is not him. He's now deceased. But this chap, he courts Hollywood in a rather vulgar style, but that is his want and whim, if that's how he wants to develop his career, his princely career all over Hollywood. Well, there is a kinship developing, and I'm sure that he could throw Harry some marvellous advice, or vice versa. And actually, if they really want to spin some more gold out of their tin foil, and I'm sure they've got more books on the way because that will be a good money maker. Well, another avenue is The Real Housewife of Montecito, which of course is Harry, but Meghan could play a starring role, couldn't she? And Doria. Now that might drum up some attention. It would be worth tuning in for a laugh, wouldn't it? There she could really earn some dough, and all they've got to do is bring a few cameras into the enclave. Do you see? This is the kind of thing that'll earn them those megabucks. Harry posed with his other new besties, Lauren Sanchez, Lauren and Jeff Bezos for Bezos. And I've got to tell you, I did think that for Harry, he was looking well. He was looking really well and fresh. Some of you will tell me in the comments he looked haggard, he looked 70 years old. Well, so do I on some days, my dear. But we all have our off days, don't we, dear, here and there. And camera angles and lighting pay a huge dividend towards that kind of thing. But Harry, was looking as pretty fresh, I thought. So I'm going to give him props for that. Fresh but unremarkable, that is, Let's not get carried away here, velvet blazer or not. Some have said that, have drawn comparisons with the fact that he was wearing a black velvet blazer or whatever it was, and Diana wore black velvet for her Travolta moment. Well, as far as I know, Diana's piece was actually a very dark midnight blue, which I didn't realise at first, but I believe it was a midnight blue, whereas Harry's was black, so might be reaching a bit with that comparison, but I did enjoy it. I did enjoy it. But I certainly saw that glint in Harry's eye as he's in his element, working the crowds and cozying up to vulgar new friends. I certainly saw the glint in his eye that says he's enjoying it. because it pleases the wife, doesn't it? It pleases the wife. It doesn't matter if it tarnishes the reputation of royalty and the kingdom and all beyond. It pleases wifey. And I just love the smell of my wife. And when I please her, oh, I'm a good boy. But then she won't slap my body if I've been too good. So I've got to be a bit of a royal rebel. And then I can todge her in and show her who's the alpha male. Ah, the games. Can you imagine the games that go on in that enclave? The mind boggles. I don't want to go. Actually, it's not possible for my mind to go there, my dear. It doesn't get sullied in that way. Do you understand? That's why I will draw a veil. So please, stop trying to goad me into discussing that kind of thing, because I won't have it. Oh, my giddy aunt. Meghan cancelled. She cancelled. I could really lay it on thick and pretend that I'm pleased that she didn't attend, but it would have been quite fun to have her there, wouldn't it, my dear, to see what she was going to trot out and delight us with on this occasion. But she cancelled plans to attend, to stay with the kids, to stay with the children. She's doing a Katie, a Katie Nana, that old chestnut. It wouldn't be unreasonable to say that she was inspired by Catherine. When the Queen lay dying, Catherine stayed home with the kids. So Meghan's been waiting for a chance to say it too, hasn't she? I have children to tend to. And when William travelled to the States last year, Catherine stayed home because of the kids. So Meghan's got to stay home for the kids, isn't she? Of course she is, my dear. Graciously allowing her brave husband, the legendary Prince Harry, of Aviation, aviational Sussex. She's graciously letting him shine. With that auburn bonds, she's letting him shine like the dandelion of fair he is under sunlight. Or perhaps she is not actually going to be bothered to leave the house if it is not her that is going to be hailed as a hero or a heroine. She's his heroine. She wants to be hailed as a legend. She hasn't got that much investment in seeing her husband getting invested as a legend. Although it would have been a chance to smoothie with Sanchez and Bezos. But if Lauren Sanchez is in the house, then how can she snuggle up next to Jeffy boy? Harry, oh H. I made you a legend. It's nice to see you getting your dues, but I made you a legend. Let's not forget that, my darling. You're up there now with Muhammad Ali, with Martin Luther King, with Robin Hood and Mickey Mouse. You're up there with all of them, my darling. Disney will honor you. And also my comic book hero, Archie. And Archie Bunker. Oh, you're up there with all of them, my dear. It's my power as a strong, confident, powerful woman of colour. And an activist, and a philanthropist, and a poet. Oh, of course, my dear, of course, it's all down to you. You've made my life complete. I had nothing before you waltzed into it. And, of course, her absence also ensured that most of the headlines covering it mentioned her absence. But we must also consider the possibility that he was gagging for a night off and away from the old bird. Now it's over to Bougie Eugie. Bougie Eugie was in Paris. Actually, it was her first showing at Paris. Not that she was walking the runway, you understand. But she was in the audience, front row, schmoozing and shining in Fendi. She was in black Fendi, head to toe, set off with a red lip for the Dior shows at École Militaire. The show was inspired by Margot Fonteyn and Rudy Nureyev, of all people, a balletic affair. And it's good to see her enjoying herself, because I'm sure she's been through the mill with all of Fergie's medical woes, and we hear that she's had a few more recently. She's been diagnosed with an aggressive form of skin cancer, and last month medics removed several moles during her breast reconstruction and found one to be a malignant melanoma. She's undergoing tests to check that everything was caught early and that nothing has spread. A spokesman for the Duchess of York said, following her diagnosis with an early form of breast cancer this summer, Sarah, Duchess of York, has now been diagnosed with malignant melanoma. Her dermatologist asked that several moles were removed and analysed at the same time as the Duchess was undergoing reconstructive surgery following her mastectomy, and one of these had been identified as cancerous. And she received this diagnosis after Christmas, and she has been recuperating in Austria at a medical spa, a very fancy, celebrity-laden spa, and I'm sure she's taking every precaution now, because her father was diagnosed, old Major Ronnie. He was diagnosed with skin cancer in the months before he died. He also had prostate cancer, and I believe he was arranging chemotherapy for those various ills, but then he actually died of a heart attack. So he didn't die of the cancer, but the skin cancer was in the family. And also Fergie's bestie of the period, Carolyn Cottrell, died of skin cancer. So, it's a cause she knows all about, unfortunately. And Beatrice, in fact, is patron of the British Skin Foundation, and she works with skin cancer patients on the regular, so she is quite up to speed with that sort of thing. Fergie piped up with a new photograph. It was a rather nice picture, saying, naturally another cancer diagnosis has been a shock, but I'm in good spirits and grateful for the many messages of love and support. I believe my experience underlines the importance of checking moles and new moles, and she urged anyone reading to be diligent, and said now she is home with the family after recuperating. I had all my moles removed as a teenager. Yes, I did. Not that I had very many. I think I had 3 on my neck, and they're very small, slightly raised, but just the very small kinds that are not much more than a freckle. But I think I had 2 this side and 1 that side. There's absolutely nothing there now, as you can see, not even a scar. 2 there, 1 there. And I had 1 on the side of my foot, which is a rather unusual place, isn't it? But I had them all done. I had them all out. And the reason that I first had them done, well, 1 or 2 of these were rubbing on my collar sometimes when I'd wear a starchy collar, which I didn't like. And also, should I say this or not? Well, yes, it was to do with the affections of a man when they are feasting upon you and upon your neck and upon your throat. I didn't want them getting in the way and spoiling any fun. So they had to go, my dear, they had to go. And now I'm mole free. Not saying, of course, that they're all harmful, far from it, but as Sarah says, keep a little check on them, a little eye. There's lots of mole clinics dotted about. Look for any changes. Just get in there early, my dear. That's the main thing, isn't there? Isn't it? Get in there early, keep an eye on things. But it does add to this roster of woes coming from the royal family that seem to apparently coming at once, and there's been quite a lot of pearl clutching. I understand concern and a little bit of worry. I understand these things, but I do feel there's been an overabundance of pearl clutching on behalf of the media. Lots of headlines saying, this is the time that the Sussexes are going to be so dearly missed because they could have been there to support. And all of that is true. Of course, all of that is true. I'm not denying it. But a little bit of over-dramatic rhetoric, I feel, because I certainly agree that more royals visible would be nice. I'm not in favour of a slimmed down version of the monarchy. But even without taking Charles and Catherine's absence over the next few weeks into account, or mainly Catherine's, because Charles will be back in full swing pretty quick sharp, it still leaves 9 working royals. So it feels like a small royal family at the moment. It has been just as small in history. There hasn't always been, 30, 40 people on the balcony, as we've seen in recent decades, or during the late Queen's reign. It hasn't always been that way. It's lapsed in and out. Seems small at the moment, but 9 working members isn't actually threadbare, is it? you know. I would like to plump it up more. We all know that it would be nice to plump up the spring season and the summer season representatives rather than the autumn and winter ones who we all love so well. But there is an imbalance. We know that we've got the two princes and the princess coming on through. It would have been lovely to have harmony in the family, to have Prince Archie, Princess Lilibet coming up, and of course the Sussexes, you know, dealing with the Commonwealth issues and being wonderful representatives. It would have been gorgeous. No one's denying that. But it still doesn't mean we have a threadbare royal family. And even in the wildest fantasy scenarios that you couldn't think of, and, you know, sort of ones involving the demise of those who we love so very dearly that we don't even want to think about, but, you know, scenarios involving no more Charles or no more William or whatever. Heaven forbid. But even taking that into account, Anne is younger than the king, and she would be superb in any regency role were it required, which is this a very, very slim chance. But any regency role interim, she would be superb. The Edinburghs are exemplary. And let's also remember that Prince George, yes, he's a lieutenant, but he's only 7.5 years away from his 18th birthday. Just 7.5 years. And you know as well as I do, my dear, that that's going to go by in a trice. It's going to go by like that. Yes, 7.5 years. And he'll be 18. And Queen Victoria took the throne at age 18. And it didn't cow her. But I'm not worried at this point in time. It would indeed be wonderful for the Eugie girls to join in as working royals. There is a controversy over Andrew. I think they would be fine. I really hope that at some point in the future it happens. Same, possibly, when it comes to Lady Lou and little Jimmy Seven. Same when it comes to them. Tall old little Jimmy Seven. The Tyndalls? No, I don't see it. That ship's flown. No, it hasn't. Oh dear. That ship's sailed and that aeroplane's flown, my dear. Watch it. And shut that door. No, I don't see it for them. They don't want it. This is the thing. And Zara said as much. She's relieved she never got the title. And to be honest, they have, I'm not going to use the word sullied, but that sort of royal brand has been a little over-tarnished now, you know. And we still love them to bits, but they've gone down a slightly different path that is perfectly nice and perfectly fine, but not necessarily royal. But moreover, they don't want it. They don't want it. Out of all of those, by the way, because I think it best that it comes from a true desire to serve and a want and a need to serve and put duty first. For my money, that would be Beatrice. I think Beatrice would be wonderful, and I think that she and Edo would make fine ambassadors. Fine ambassadors. Yes, I would. Watch this space. King Frederick made the first appearance of his reign at Sunday service, and he was joined by Queen Mary. Fred and Mary Denmark met their well-wishers outside the cathedral, and the king dressed in full military regalia, and they had their 4 children with them in tow. Isn't he huge? Isn't he huge, Crown Prince Christian? At 18 years old, towering over him as he does. Towering over them. Tall, 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 tall. Wonderful for a king, isn't it? Wonderful for a future king, but a bit of a scene stealer. It's like that Baron Trump. He's been eating his ready brek, hasn't he, my dear? Whoosh! Up in the clouds. Absolutely up in the clouds. Royalty on stilts. And there is also Princess Isabella, 16 years old, and the twins, Prince Vincent and Princess Josephine, both at 13. And there was a delicious cameo from Queen Margrethe, who wore grey and purple. And also Queen Mary wore regal purple, didn't she? So both in the same sort of shade there, or different tones of the same colour, but lovely regal purple there from Queen Mary, waving to the crowds. Hello, Queen Mary! Good day, Your Majesty. Queen Camilla has been getting on with business as the king prepares for his clinical procedure. She was at a refuge today for domestic abuse victims, and she gave a speech marking the 50th anniversary of the Swindon Domestic Abuse Support Service, saying she hoped that the horrific scourge of domestic abuse would be obliterated over the next 50 years. 50 years? My. She met with staff and volunteers and families and with Wiltshire Police to highlight their work. And she unveiled a plaque for Jenny's house in honour of beneficiaries, and she received a bouquet in yellow and white, which contrasted beautifully with her eyes of sapphire, didn't it, as they twinkled and danced so, and her earlobes were adorned with gold and with pearl. And I loved seeing one of her companions with her, and this time we have Lady Sarah Troughton. There she is, so handsome in full uniform, isn't she, Lady Sarah? Lovely job, ladies. The Duchess of Edinburgh received plenty of birthday accolades after we last spoke. She received accolades from many of her patronages to illustrate exactly how hard she works, because they were all full of joy and full of love and full of praise for her, including the Scar-Free Foundation, the Race Against Dementia, Blind Veterans UK, Guide Dogs for the Blind, the National Autistic Society, Oscar International, and also there were plenty of wishes from the Carank Association, the Royal Variety, many more there were, with touching stories, personal stories of her fruitful involvement. Many happy returns, Sophie dear. And her hubby, our darling Steady Eddie, is in South Africa. Indeed, he's representing the King. He arrived today and he was welcomed with a warm greeting from the ambassador, and just a few days before he arrived in South Africa, he was busy in Birmingham. He paid a visit to the Royal Birmingham Conservatoire, and he hosted a roundtable discussion with music organisations to discuss widening access to music. And His Royal Highness also met student performers. And later on, the Duke visited the City of Birmingham Symphony Orchestra, which is one of his many arts patronages. You know that he's very artsy-fartsy, isn't he, already? And he conducted the orchestra for the very first time. And I tell that he did rather well. He opened the Shireland CBSO Academy School, which is the first school in Britain to be established in collaboration with an orchestra, pioneering a new approach to music education. How exciting. And very well needed, because from what I hear, the dumbing down continues throughout music, and orchestras and societies are being defunded, and music charities are being defunded, and all the expertise and excellence that's been squeezed out of Britain over the last few centuries really it's all plummeting, my dear, plummeting. You know, it's going that direction. You know, I've come to terms with the fact that everything we know, all the excellence from England, it's all being lost because it's not going to be cherished, you see, by future generations as much. A lot of that is to do with mass immigration, not regular, normal, gentle immigration, because lots of those people who immigrated are just as proud of English and British history as those who have generations going back on this soil. I'm talking about mass immigrations coming in, lots of different cultures coming in, all being watered down, all being dumbed down. There's no point in pretending that that can all be rescued and saved and cherished, because none of them are going to care. None of them are going to care. So, they can do with it what they will. Whatever muck and trash they end up with won't be my affair. Hopefully I'll be gone by then to see most of it, if the world is still going then. Do I digress? Prince Edward also made a surprise visit to church in Norfolk. The King didn't attend this weekend, but Edward was round and about, and he was wearing his tie in blue, yellow and green, and he had sparkling eyes, and he wore a very broad grin, which always cheers people up. Doesn't he have ferocious eyes? And I mean that in the complimentary way, but those, I don't know, sort of foxy, what would you say, weaselish? No, they're not. That doesn't do him justice. I'm trying to think of the creature, but he's got these intense, sparkling, smiling eyes, but fierce and ferocious, hasn't he? A little bit like the late Duke, Philip, a little bit in that vein, but also all of his own concoction. Very nice, and rather sexy, I should think, for our dear Sophie in certain moments. Thank you for joining me, my luscious fruits. I look forward to seeing you next time. Leave me a nice fruity comment, and if you care to treat me to a cup of coffee, my tip jar is in the box. Ta-ra, my dears, and toodle pip.